Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're diving into a really surprising truth about Catholic canon law. When most people hear the phrase canon law, they immediately picture this rigid, dusty bureaucracy that's basically just designed to tell people no. But as we unpack the source material, we're going to discover that it's actually a deeply relational framework built precisely to protect your rights. Let's break it down. So here's our roadmap for breaking down this massive juridical grammar into bite-sized pieces. We'll start with the symphony of canon law, then look at the rights of the faithful, the pastor's immediate duty, the bishop's governing role, discerning spiritual gifts, and finally, what to do when authority stays silent. All right, part 1, the symphony of canon law. To start us off, picture that classic, approachable dashboard buddy Christ, paired with a pretty profound quote from legal scholar John Henry Merriman. Merriman points out something super important. A legal tradition puts a whole system into cultural perspective. The source material uses this exact idea to set an approachable tone for what is honestly a pretty heavy topic. Canon law isn't just some list of rules floating in a vacuum. It's rooted in a deeply historical, cultural attitude about how a society, in this case the church, ought to operate and actually care for its people. The most common myth out there is that the church is this rigid, top-down dictatorship making arbitrary rules, kind of like a principal who suddenly declares homework is banned today, but mandatory for the next 80 years tomorrow. That is just chaos wearing a fancy tie. The reality, as our source material explains, the church is actually more like a giant orchestra. Canon law is simply the sheet music, keeping everyone playing in harmony. The violin can't tell the conductor what to do, but the conductor also can't just throw the violin into the parking lot on a whim. The music only works if everyone plays their part. Now, this framework of ecclesial responsibility is incredibly detailed. It really proves the sheer depth of the system we're talking about today. It outlines the rights of the faithful, the duties of pastors, the canonical processes, and the remedies available. The whole shebang. Don't worry about memorizing every single box right now. We're going to break this exact framework down piece by piece as we go. Moving right along to Section 2, Rights of the Faithful. So, the absolutely crucial point of Canon 212 is that you, yes, you, have a legally recognized right to communicate your needs, your desires, and your informed opinions to your pastors. You literally don't need prior institutional permission to speak up. The law itself establishes your freedom to make those needs known. Whether it's spiritual confusion, material hardship, or even an apostolic proposal, the church's legal order recognizes that you are an active participant here. You are not just a passive spectator supposed to sit quietly in the pews. And get this, if you're called to serve the church, whether permanently or temporarily, Canon 231 actually guarantees your right to decent, fair pay. This totally shuts down that toxic idea of working for heavenly coupons. The law explicitly recognizes that lay people have families to feed and bills to pay. A call to serve God does not grant an institution unlimited authority to just take your labor for free. You have a real right to provide decently for your family, complete with health and social provisions. Okay, Section 3, the pastor's immediate duty. The law insists that a pastor cannot act like an invisible restaurant manager. You know the type? The one who allegedly exists but has literally never been seen by a living customer? No. Under Canon 529, he must actively shepherd. This means parishioners are treated as real humans with complicated stories, not just data points on an intake form. Pastoral responsibility is active, not merely receptive. He can't just sit behind a desk waiting for you to solve some riddle just to get his attention. He is legally commanded to actively seek out those weighed down by special difficulties. This proves that true shepherding means actually going out after the lost sheep, right? Not just waiting around for them to fill out some paperwork. He is instructed to share in their cares, anxieties, and sorrows. Now, he doesn't have to personally solve every single problem, but he is legally bound to receive the burden as real, to listen, and to coordinate actual assistance or referrals. All right, stepping up to Section 4, the bishop's governing role. So, a bishop isn't some medieval supervillain twirling an invisible mustache and ruling by arbitrary decree. Instead, he's meant to be more like a gardener and a coordinator. His real job is to help genuine works grow, to remove obstacles, and to make sure all the different apostolic works in a diocese aren't crashing into each other like bumper cars. He tests the plants to see what's growing, prunes what needs pruning, and helps everything find its proper place in the garden. And to actually do this gardening, Canon 381 grants him what is called ordinary, proper, and immediate authority. Now, what does that mean? It basically means he has the built-in legal power to act directly for the good of his diocese. He doesn't need to ask for a permission slip from Rome for ordinary governance. This immediate power allows him to intervene, coordinate, and care for all the faithful, especially those who might fall through the cracks of standard parish care. Authority here isn't about power trips. It's about having the legal capacity to actually serve the people. Which brings us to Section 5, Discerning Spiritual Gifts. As this quote from the Second Vatican Council's Lumen Gentium makes crystal clear, these gifts are not VIP badges reserved only for the clergy. No way. The Holy Spirit distributes these special graces among the faithful of every rank. You could be a dad, a mechanic, a scholar, or the quiet lady organizing the parish potluck. These gifts show up everywhere, and they are meant to build up the church. They aren't meant to be hidden away. So the key takeaway here is that you have both a right and a duty to use your gift. And pastors, well, they have a corresponding duty to actually test it. They absolutely cannot quench the Spirit by pretending you or your work are invisible. The process is this beautiful sequence. The Spirit gives, you develop and present it, pastors test its genuineness and figure out its proper use, and finally, the church coordinates that good fruit for the world. But remember, it all relies on authority actually receiving and testing the gift. And finally, Section 6, When Authority Stays Silent. It is incredibly frustrating when ecclesiastical authority just stonewalls you, or when a formal petition vanishes into an administrative black hole, never to be heard from again. You might feel totally powerless, but guess what? Canon law actually has a brilliantly built-in mechanism to prevent you from being trapped forever by silence. You are not meant to just be left in limbo. Under Canon 57, if an authority stays silent for 3 whole months after you've submitted a legitimate formal petition, the law legally treats that silence as a presumed negative decision. Basically, the law translates their radio silence into a formal no. Now, why on earth is that a good thing? Well, because it unlocks your right to take action. It means the clock has run out on their chance to stall you, and you can now officially move forward. This pathway right here brilliantly illustrates canonical accountability. Think about it. You submit a petition and wait 3 months. If you just get silence, boom, it becomes a presumed negative decision. Now, you can take that presumed negative and appeal to the next higher authority to review the matter and seek justice. This is what's called hierarchical recourse. It ensures that ecclesiastical authority actually remains accountable and that your petition keeps moving through the legal system, even if the very first person you asked refuses to answer. Ultimately, as we've seen in this explainer, canon law isn't just a pile of paperwork, and it for sure isn't a weapon for bureaucrats. It's a relational grammar, one that's entirely ordered toward communion and justice, and designed as a literal shield for the vulnerable. It exists to ensure that everyone in the church, from the everyday faithful right up to the highest bishop, owes something to each other. Rights and responsibilities are perfectly balanced to keep the orchestra playing. So I'll leave you with a final thought to ponder. If a law exists to protect the vulnerable, but nobody knows how to actually use it, is it truly serving the flock? The sheer power of knowing your rights within these vast institutions is immense, but a legal framework only protects you if you understand it. I really hope this explainer has empowered you with the knowledge of how this fascinating system is actually built to support you. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep asking those great questions.